Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, and you can also find us anywhere you find podcasts, specifically Spotify and Apple Podcasts. With that being said, I have Michael Force with us from Liquid Jazz out of Sturbridge, Massachusetts. How are you doing today, Michael?
Doing well, thank you.
So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about your story, your product, your background as an entrepreneur, because it obviously wasn't easy getting to where you are now, building a business, and you have some years and some trial and error from what I've read in your background. So it's all yours, all the way from little Michael to big Michael now. The microphone's yours.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, well, look, my first foray into the business world is, I was on the road selling most of my working career, and then had the opportunity to purchase a paint and decorating store for my father-in-law. So I did that, and then for 30 years I ran that. And then, the retail world, it got old. So I retired, but then I couldn't retire. I started driving school bus, and then went to work for another person part-time. It ended up full-time. So I finally retired and I started this. I started making homemade wine with a friend of mine 26 years ago. And we would get together every Thursday and we'd have wine night and local winemakers, and it's grown a lot since then. We'd get together, we'd open a couple bottles of wine, sit and talk, and just give each other our ideas and what we did to make the wine. And we always had an issue where I could open a couple of bottles of wine 2 or 3 hours ahead of when we were going to meet. And, we'd finish those, and then you'd open a fresh bottle and it didn't taste anywhere near what we were drinking because it didn't have time to open up. So for all those years, I kept thinking there had to be something new and different. And we like to vacation on the North Shore of Massachusetts, Gloucester, Mass. And it's a rocky shore. We stay at the Bass Rocks Inn, and right across the street, they have a little grass area, Adirondack chairs. So I take my homemade wine, my glass, I just sit out there and just watch the water and watch what's going on. So this one day about 4 years ago, I'm sitting out there and it's a perfect day. It's slack tide in between the two tides, and lobster guy's pulling his traps, sailboat goes by, and then all of a sudden the tide changes, and now the tide's coming in and the water's crashing on the rocks, and I start to smell the seaweed and the salt air, and I'm like, okay, there's something about this splashing thing that's, opening up the ocean. So that's in the back of my mind. So we live by a river here in Sturbridge. My friend and I are out walking that following winter. It's a slow moving river. The river's frozen over, but there's a little spot that's open where the water is rolling over the rocks so it couldn't freeze. And there was a low branch there, and the mist from the water rolling over the rocks was creating the icicles on a low branch. And that's when I put two and two together. If I can roll the wine over something, I could open it up like the splashing of the ocean on the rocks did. So I know a guy who owns a sheet metal shop. I drew up a little prototype. He made it for me out of stainless steel. And one wine night, there was 5 of us there. And I said, look, I'm going to try this. First time I use it. And lo and behold, it worked. So that's how I stepped in. Then I, retired. We've all had hundreds of ideas. And I had a friend one time, we were talking, had to be 30 years ago. And we were talking about ideas. And he said, the only difference between real entrepreneurs and the average person is the entrepreneur acts on their idea. So that always stuck in the back of my mind. And, when retired, I had the time and, had a little money put aside. So I made the jump, and I hired a launch company to help me out. Came out with the design, we made the product, and here I am now out selling.
Let's go through the product, the idea, like the rolling over something, because I think you've developed something very unique. And I think you've come about it naturally, almost God given. It sort of came from nature, which is always the best solution. So let's talk about the product itself. Let's talk about what makes it different and why, because I think you discovered something very unique.
Thank you. Yeah, and I did, a year ago, June, I received a patent on it. So it is a patented product, which is kinda cool, and it's interesting when I do say that, it changes people's perspective dramatically when they see this. And I obviously, I have one with me all the time, but I don't know if we can see. The bottom has these steps, and as you can see, it's very different than your traditional decanter, which most of them are round, and this one has this more of a, elongated shape. And what we do is we put it on a base, and then we just do this, and that's it, and the wine rolls up and down the steps. I actually have a bottle of wine here, so I'm gonna do the full experience. So so what I like to do when I'm doing the taste testing is because I found with, I've probably gone through about 250 different wines now, over the year and a half that I've had this available, and it significantly changes probably 80% of the wines. And then there's probably another 10 or 50% that it changes it a little, and there's a few that it hasn't changed at all. So a lot of it is just, experience type stuff. So I usually pour a little bit out, and I do have my own glasses too, and the glasses have the steps in them. So instead of the traditional swirl with a glass of wine, we rock. And with the rocking motion, well, let me get this done. With the rocking motion, it just seems to open it up a lot easier than the swirl, and it's a much more natural process, the rocking motion than the swirling motion. And then once you get the technique, and again, I'm watching here now because actually see, there's a little sediment in this. That technically is decanting right there. Everybody thinks that the process when it gets into the decanter is the decanting, but it's not. You can pour it into a 5-gallon bucket, and that's the decanting. And if you notice when I poured, right here, this part of the bottle, that's where you're supposed to be watching. And as it gets towards the end, if you see a little sediment building there, you stop. So that's actually the decanting process. So now with this, by doing this, and all you need is always been the lucky number. I've had a few that have taken maybe 2.5, 3 minutes. Those are some of the newer, lighter wines. But the ones that, the Cabernets, the heavier wines, those will take the full 4 minutes. I did have a Washington State wine that took 15 minutes before it made any changes. It was so tight. I just couldn't open it up. So, but the rocking method, by it going up and down, if you think about it, you see this, I have a lot of volume of air in this decanter. And by rocking it, it changes the surface area, on all the motions. It's not just sitting there like your traditional decanter. And there's a few other electronic devices out there that do it. One of them creates like a vortex. Another one, it sits on a pad and it rocks it around. And it's just so aggressive with the wine. And we kind of, when I was making the wine, my friend Tony's dad, Mr. Staffieri, he was the one that taught me. And he was in his 70s when he taught me 26 years ago. And then I made my first batch with him. Then the following year, I had friends that wanted to do it. So I went out and bought some equipment and we started making the wine. And that's how wine night started. So we were racking the wine one night. Tony came up with his dad. And once we're racking it, we just, we did, You remember we used to get gas out of the car, you just put the siphon. Okay, same thing. So with like the guy, one of the guys that made it with me, Kenny, was filling the wine glasses just out of the siphon tube, and he spills. It wasn't even a sip of the wine. And Mr. Staffieri bangs his fist on the table and said, "If you don't respect the wine, don't make it." And it came from the heart. I mean, he brought that over from Italy when he came, the winemaking, and it was just such a serious thing. And I always thought about that when I was making the wine. So I always did. So this process is much gentler, much slower, more methodical, and it's really kind of it's relaxing. A lot of the people I've gotten feedback from that have bought this and has the decanter, they enjoy this process as much as after the wine is finished. He said, you just slow down, take your time, watch the wine rock back and forth. It's very, mind softening, mind cleansing. So it has a benefit. Then we do have electronic one in R&D right now. Uh, some people just don't have the patience. They're just wound too tight to be able to enjoy this process. And even some of them are like, "Oh my God, 4 minutes." I'm like, "You're gonna be kidding me. It takes an hour or two the other way." So the big thing with this was it was invented for the second bottle. I mean, the first bottle, obviously, you can open it up and do what we're doing. But the big problem I had, you open a bottle of wine a couple hours ahead of time. It's sitting in your decanter on the dining room table. Your friends come over, you sit down, and while you're having appetizers or just waiting, you start drinking, and then you finish that bottle. Well, you're not going to wait another hour for that second bottle. And if you open another wine, you're not drinking a wine that's opened. The flavors haven't been released. So this is where this kind of came in. It's more the second, but obviously I do it all the time now. I bring it into restaurants and I, just enjoy it. It's a little bit different too. I mean, you can single hand, you can hold it with one hand if you want, but the easier way we find is if you just I'm right-handed, my right hand goes underneath, left hand here. So this is just the pivot point. And then we have a floated spout. So you see, you get a nice pour out of that. And then I mean, pretty much that's it. That's the process. And again, like I was saying, we're more of a rock. So what I do with the rocking is you rock it. I bring it right under my nose. That smells nice. First time with this wine, it was a gift wine. And if once you get enough practice, so you got to practice every day because practice makes perfect. You rock it, and as you're getting the aroma in, you go right into your sip. And you get your sip of wine, and it's open, it's flavorful. And the fun part about pouring a little bit beforehand is you get to see the difference. Right. So see that one has that little acidity bite. The tannins are a little bit sharper. You get that dry feel, and you don't get as open and full of flavor. Like I'm not good at telling you what I taste in wines. I'm having a hard time when I do my presentations with sommeliers and restaurant owners and some sophisticated wine palates. I don't have a sophisticated wine palate. I'm more of I don't like. I mean, I can definitely taste the difference. But again, what I'm reaching out to people is that the success I have is every time I've done a show and an event, I sell multiple when they get to taste and see the difference. It's a dramatic change. Me tasting it and saying I taste the change. It doesn't have the cachet that it does when somebody actually does taste it and witness the experience. So that's why I'm hoping by reaching out, doing some podcasts, doing different events that like this online, that people are willing to give it a try and see how it works.
Let's talk about it a little bit. The purpose of, obviously it's lightening the wine, it's giving it flavor, it's giving an aroma to it because you're almost oxidizing it in a way. I don't know how to describe it, but you're slowly layering in there, which allows it to sort of, well, one, get air into it, but two, allow the smell to become airborne. But the flavoring, the original flavors, it lightens it and it intensifies some, but it lightens others, is the way I would describe what you're saying, I think. And the wine, the original wine before you decanted it and rolled it, I'll call it the rolling, will it it was almost deeper in color a little bit, at least what I can see
Yep.
here, but it also looked lighter, to your palate in that the original one, your lips kind of chapped a little bit, but the other one just went down smoothly, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I could tell that there was a difference in maybe bitter or whatever. Is that necessarily true? It's becoming less bitter, less sour, and more flavorful as you go through it?
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty much what the decanting process does. I mean, if you think about when you go to a restaurant and you order a bottle of wine at the table, that last glass you have before you end the evening. So you're sitting there for an hour and you're sipping. Well, technically, you're doing what I'm doing. You take a sip, it comes down. You take a sip, it comes down. You pour a little more in. So you're getting all of that motion into the wine because, I mean, it is a natural product. Wine is a natural product. So the organic compounds are still building up inside the bottle. So with the rocking motion and with it running up and down the steps that are in the bottle of the decanter, that sulfite taste tends to dissipate. The alcohol smell, it doesn't lessen the alcohol, but that alcoholic smell dissipates. And then it just softens the tan and the acidity, and it lets the true flavor of the grape expose itself better. And that's, I mean, I didn't invent decanting, but that's what decanting does. When you do open it like that, it just makes it more enjoyable. That's all. And it's for anywhere from 5.99 a bottle and up. You're just, creating a more drinkable wine.
Yeah, better experience, I think, for the individuals. If you are wine drinkers, I think it does open up variety. It does open up better flavor profile and enjoyable no matter which wine you like. I think it enhances it 100% if it is properly decanted in any way, or whatever, decanted and then sits for a while or swirled for a while. In this case, rolled for a while. But, I wanna talk a little bit about from a business perspective. You created the product, you had to have someone design it or blow the glass or whatever or mold it. Let's talk a little bit about that because you had to find a manufacturer maybe or a partner to do this with. What was that like from a business perspective?
It ended up not as difficult as it started off difficult because I started trying to find people myself. And I did reach out to all the large glass manufacturers in the United States. And I pretty much had the same answer from all of them. My numbers weren't big enough for them to close their run lines down. They were so busy with their products that the cost for them to stop manufacturing theirs, put in my molds, do a couple thousand of these. They said, the machine's down for a day when it's only really working for an hour. So the cost was prohibitive. So I did find a company that reached out, and I had to go to China. It's not what that definitely wasn't my first choice, but for the first run, that's where we had to go. That was quite a challenge. I was thankful that I had a company that understood what had to happen because as a first time anyone in the manufacturing world, you don't really realize how much is involved with you just figure you call and you order it. Because I was in retail all those years, on the paint store. You call the paint company, tell them how many cases you wanted. The truck pulled up, you'd unload it and put it on the shelves. Well, this is not this. I mean, I had to have a mold build. Then they do preliminary testing, and then the mold goes to the manufacturing place. They make it. They have to inspect it. Then you have to have packaging for it, and then it goes to their inventory place, and then you have to order the container. Then it gets put in the container, and then it's 60 days to get it. You're like, oh my god, it just and then as you go through each step, you understand what it takes, but the time factor was just, I mean, from the time I order till the time I get it, it's like 6 months of, and that's with no issues. That's no containers falling off the ship. That's no, embargoes. The trucks don't break down on the way. There's a lot of moving parts that have to work. It was really an experience to see
A
all that
lot of
stuff.
faith,
It
right? A
was
lot of faith. Faith in the manufacturer's faith that the product will actually make it here, faith that your money's gonna be returned to you in the form of a product.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, there's a lot of faith involved with this. Exactly. And so far it's been good. I mean, I haven't covered my investment yet, but I'm getting closer and closer. So, and then, then the exciting part and probably the scariest part, because I've had a few um wine influencers that I've met, two of them actually. And their biggest thing is they have good sized followings. One has a little over 50,000, the other one's over 100,000. And one of their fears is that, for me to get them to do the promotion, if it takes off, I'm going to run out of what I have fairly quickly. To get it done again, now their viewers who trust what they say and what they do, now they put the money in, and it could be 6 to 8 months before they see a wine decanter. So that's been a little bit of a challenge too to get that all lined up and get that set up. So there's been a lot of little hurdles that, I mean, obviously, if you never do it, if you've never done it, you don't even know that they exist. And then when they come up, there's just that learning curve that you have to go through. But I wouldn't do much different than I've done right now. Some of the decisions I made that ended up costing me a lot more money than I got on a return, I wouldn't do again, obviously. But as far as going for it, I did the launch company I used. I mean, it's fun going there. They're not far from me. They're only about a 45-minute drive. And when you walk in there and you see all the different inventions that are in there, it's a sight to be seen. Everything's on the wall and they're just showing all these things. You're like, oh my God, yeah, that makes so much sense. And to have the people that have had I don't know if you say courage or the insanity of going for it. It's pretty cool.
I think it's really cool what you're doing, and you've done. That's going to be like my next question for sure. Is okay. Now you've got it. You've brought it in the country. How do you get with influencers? How are you building these relationships? Where are you going to get this in front of the proper customers or clients, depending on where it is? Because I could see a vineyard buying a lot of these, maybe even want them customized so they could sell them themselves with their engraving of their vineyard on them. So my mind is going crazy as a business person, entrepreneur. But talk to me a little bit about all of that. Like once you have it, how do you get it in front of people now? I mean, we're talking on a podcast, obviously, and we mentioned a little bit, but let's talk about the legwork itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my late 60s now, and then when I was on the road selling, back then there were no cell phones, or I mean, I was probably 12 years into my selling career, and we had a big meeting. We all got beepers, so that was that was a big thing for us. So it was just, you just hit the road, and you know, look at phone books, or you look online and you see places you think might be interested, and you just drive there, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, can I buy a bottle of wine here?" and show you how it works. And it's been very, very successful doing that. Like I said, everywhere I've gone, I've done very well. I do wine tastings. There's a vineyard down in North Carolina, Raffledini Vineyards. I did a American Wine Society event down there, and Jay Raffledini, the gentleman that owns the place, he loved the look, he loved everything about it, and he invited me back when he did his wine club members event, and we had a huge successful event at that. So most of it has just been, going out and knocking on doors. And, if you've been on the road selling long enough, rejection doesn't phase you because you kind of get rejected, 90+% of the time. And you just keep going back and eventually you weaken them or you catch them on one of those days and they try it. And it's like, oh, wow, it does work. So that's pretty much how I've been doing it so far. But you just reach that one audience there at that one time. But the positive of that is, and what has made me feel the best out of everything is, I've had many reorders from people who have bought it that have given it as gifts. So obviously they trust the product enough and have enjoyed the product enough to invest, you know, um, to invest in it again to give it to somebody else who they know would enjoy, a nice glass of wine. So that's been the one of the better things about being out there hitting the road. But now I'm trying another way. I'm hoping that this I can reach because I can only reach the people that are there when I do it that way. With you, I have a chance of reaching obviously a much larger audience for people to understand because I can't be driving, not the Oscar Mayer Wiener van, just driving around the country so people can see me. I do have a life here, so I'm hoping this works. I'm excited about this. I never knew anything about the podcast world until I had to try it, and it's very interesting. You can learn a lot from podcasts.
Yeah, it's a lot of information for the individuals who are seeking it, and a lot of it is usually cost free. Actually, I found a lot of it you can pay for some of it, but there's a lot of good content out there that doesn't cost much, or the entrepreneurs or the host are trying to just get the information out there or help people, which I think is probably the most useful way of giving away information is export knowledge. So, um, well, Michael, let's talk a little bit about from your background, how life sort of stacked your skills for this moment because you have a long history. You've been in sales. We talked about bus driving. We've talked about your interest in wine. You've stacked up a lot of things in life that have led up to this moment. Is there anything in particular or any mentor in particular that you feel has helped prepare you for this life as an entrepreneur that you've embarked on?
Yeah, there's been a few, and they've all happened on along the way. I haven't really had one that I've had for the entire time. But obviously, growing up, my dad, the work ethic that he always put in me. I mean, I was helping him rake leaves at his part-time job. When I was, 7, 8 years old, I'm out raking leaves, and you learn the pecking order. Obviously, he was my dad, but he was also my boss, and one of the first things I remember is we're out raking leaves and we're working side by side the whole way. And then lady came out and paid us, and I got half of what he got. And I'm like, we're driving home. I go, hey, what's the deal with this? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I did just as much as you. He said, yeah, you're 8. I'm like, Dad, I worked just as hard as you. He said, but you got to learn that, you have to grow into that. So obviously I didn't like it, but it's just part of the learning curve. And then in the summer between 7th and 8th grade, I got a part-time job at a it was a little store that, I mean, they did have wine, beer. They had a little deli, fish market with produce. So I got a job there, stacking shelves, crates and stuff. And this was a guy too. I mean, you learn the customer service aspect of it. He was phenomenal at that customer service. And we had talks because again, I'm in 8th grade. I worked there right through my high school years. And you learn a lot. You learn how to deal with people. You learn their likes and dislikes. And just sharing knowledge. Like if there was something that came in that I knew if you liked oranges, and then back then you didn't have oranges all year round. You had oranges when they were in season. If we got a new type of an orange and I saw you come in and be like, "Hey, Justin, come over here and try this. This is a new orange." And now you build that bond, that trust you build. So that worked out. And then when I graduated, I went to work for my father-in-law. He was a brick mason. So I started off as a tender, and it didn't take long before I realized that this was not going to be my full career. He was an amazing worker. He was the best around here. We did all the top homes, all the top buildings around here because he was such a craftsman. But I'm social. I like people. I like talking. Our extended day was, morning Fred, morning Mike, good night Fred, good night Mike, and then that was our day. And I'm like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work for me. So I started looking around and checking newspapers, and I got a job out on the road selling and loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved seeking out customers. I loved, going in for the kill. I don't know if it was my athletic background that, you figure out your way to get it. The problem I always had was, and my wife would get upset, is when I started doing well, you would just be going into customers and taking orders. And there was no challenge anymore. So I'd come home, and back then you didn't have the internet. So I'd have all the big papers around, the Hartford Courant, Springfield Times, 2 Boston papers, Providence. You go, "You're not looking for another job, are you?" It's like, I'm so bored right now. I'm just taking orders. We're finally making money. So I go out and look for another job. So I sold Sackcrete, that cement in a bag. I sold eyeglass frames. I sold bank supplies. I sold paint and roller covers and sundries. I sold Wagner spray equipment. I sold lumber. It just kept going. So finally, when I had the opportunity to buy the business for my father-in-law, it's a paint. And I got to be, now in charge. So I went out on the road, and I also did, inventory, unload the trucks, did the shelves. But it was home. So when the children were growing up, they came in and they learned how to stack shelves and how to, customer relations. And they're both in the public world doing, very well. And at that point, my wife opened an antique store. We own a commercial building, so we had some empty space. And it was funny. Our youngest granddaughter, she's 10 now, but she was, in the store growing up. I mean, that's where you come visit us. So she saw about moving stuff around and rotating and changing things. And she was out working with my daughter one time, and they were in a place, and there was someone sitting there watching her, and she's 8 years old at this point, and the guy's watching her put inventory up on the shelf, and she turns around and says to him, she says, "Don't worry, I rotate stock." And the guy got hysterical. He says, "This is an 8-year-old, like, worried about rotating stock." And he said, "You're going to do well out there." So that was my journey. And each spot, there's always someone that either takes a liking to you, or they can see there's a benefit to them too, business wise. That they help you and they guide you. And I had someone all the way, and it was great. And and I don't want to say this in a negative way, but I took advantage of everything that they had to offer. You listen and learn from their experiences because they've all had failures. And those are the ones I tend to listen to the most, was the failure. So, I would hope that I wouldn't, repeat that same step.
I love it. I think that I'm the same. I think it's been a group of individuals for sure over years, and you learn a little bit from a lot of people, but nothing like putting yourself in your own entrepreneurial situation, similar to what you did with the paint store. I think there's nothing we want to try to be it, or we want to try to learn it, but often it's just jumping in. As you said, we just have to do it. If we're going to switch careers or it's time to move on, to your point, we just need to move on. Sometimes we do more damage by sticking around in something we're half interested in than going and do something we're full interested in. Um,
Yeah,
I
good.
like this a lot. I want to pause for a second. Where can they find everything online? Where can they find you? Social media, all that good stuff. I want to make sure everyone can find that.
Yeah, it's under Liquid Jazz Experience, and we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. I'm not as active as I should be. My daughter and granddaughters get on me for that. And then the website is liquidjazzexperience.com, and that should get you to our website.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I just want to make sure everyone can find it. They can see the stuff, order the products, find more about you. This is going to be my last question for you. Let's talk about the what you're building now, the dreams and hopes of where it goes. I mean, before you were doing painting, obviously, I don't want to call it small, but in terms of being able to build something large, uh, this may be something that you're doing that's bigger. I would say that can touch more people, where you can communicate with more people, have more influence on people, etc. Let's talk a little bit about the future, where you're hoping this goes. We talked about that 6 to 8 month delay on the next round of product, but let's talk about truly where your heart is, where you're building this, and particularly this product, because you chose this. You had more of a traditional blue collar career before, entrepreneur career in painting, I believe, in stores and stuff like that. No different than what I did in restaurant equipment and sales and construction in a lot of ways. But there is that need for something bigger sometimes, or that bigger challenge that seems to be innate in you over time or over your lifetime, as we've proven through your story. Let's talk a little bit about this product in particular, Liquid Jazz, the goals, the dreams, the hopes, where you're aiming.
Yeah, obviously, ideal situation is it doesn't. I I don't want it to get shelved. And I'm looking at, my son's career is very successful, and he's not going to get involved. And my daughter is building a strong career too right now in multiple facets. And so I don't this it's not a pass down thing. So ideal situation is I could get tied in with a someone who knows the world of this better than I, and partner up with that person to help guide me. I'm almost, because I'm trying this now, I'm almost locked in. My old knock on the door way, it's not the way anymore. And especially with something like this, like outside of that small area in North Carolina and my little area here and out to Boston. I did do some work on Nantucket. I did do stuff in Newport, their yacht festival, which was, I didn't get any sales out of that, but we had an absolute blast. There is such a different world out there of lifestyles that I had no clue existed. And brought my granddaughters, my daughter, my wife, and I. We all went in. We're doing wine tastings on yachts. And they said, "Yeah, we're one of the smaller ones. We're only 168 feet long." Oh, okay. So it was a great experience. But like most of the world out there, I've been more, I mean, way before this thing ever came about. I'm a huge Shark Tank fan. And someone who has that kind of a, obviously doesn't have to be that big, but somebody who has that kind of connections in the manufacturing world, the retail world, somebody who can say, "Hey, Justin, this works. Give it a try," and you say, "Okay." I'm working with a gentleman now. He's part of a good sized distributorship up here with wine and spirits. And when he was talking about the winery that they're their large distributor for. He said, when people buy pallets of their wines, stores, they always give them a gift. He said, this would be an awesome gift to give. All we have to do is engrave the name of the winery on that decanter, and that would be the gift with the pallet. I'm like, That would be awesome. I would love that. Well, that's not just, call up, "Hey, Justin, I got this idea." "Oh, okay, I have them print up 100 and we'll." You have to talk to this person, and then it has to get approved, and it's like, "Hey, I'm not a kid anymore. If I'm 20, okay, so it takes, a year or 2 for this to work." I don't have that kind of time. I don't wanna be doing these shows with a walker. I wanna be going here, doing all these things and having a good time. I'd love to be a face for a little while longer. I love doing the shows. I love doing the demonstration. I love all that social part. The behind the scenes stuff it's not what I love. So if I could, the ideal thing would to be find somebody, a company, an organization, whatever it is that has that, those fingers, those networks out there, and they just call me and say, "Hey, you're doing the Justin Bizzarro show this afternoon." I'm like, "All right, sure, I'll set up for that. I'll put my shirt on and go do go do wineries. Like we just made a deal with blah 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 winery. You're going to be doing tastings there on this weekend, and I fly out and I do the tastings. I'm drinking wine with people. We're talking. So that would be the ideal situation for me at this point.
One of the things that has come to my mind just from being an observer on the other side, and something that I think may work for you, and it depends on your target audience, obviously, but something like a QVC or a home network, and I've had clients or people I've worked with before that have done it, but being able to display the motion on a screen, being able to get in front of people, being able to work with a company that can ship a lot of volume very quickly, and work with you on the volume restrictions that you're having now. Okay, I'm going to have a pallet come in. Let's air blah blah blah, and we can sell the whole container or pallet or however many you want to sell. I think would be good. I think you would sell a lot of your product to people. Like I think the podcasts are good. I think for sure, but there are brokers out there. There are people that help you get into the grocery stores and the home networks. I'm sure you're already maybe talking to some of them, but I just think that your product would do extremely well uh, for an audience like that, particularly around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. Not as much Easter, but particularly Thanksgiving, Christmas, just because the volume there, and even as a Valentine's Day present for those wine goers, that there's an appeal there. There's a lure, and the motion of doing the wine is almost soothing. So you're almost selling two things here. You're selling wine, you're selling the experience of the wine, but you're also selling a peaceful experience that just by watching you, I can be at peace. Like I was like anyone in the audience, I was having struggles with the audio. I'm having struggles with the video today. I don't know what was going on, but I was flustered. I was frustrated. I wanted to be as good as possible and perfect. But then all of a sudden, he's rocking the little wine back and forth, and all of a sudden, I'm finding tranquility. So for me, I found it to be extremely soothing and relaxing, and I like that you call it an experience because it is a liquid jazz experience. It's not just the liquid itself. It's not just the wine or what was grapes or glorified grape juice. It is actually this moment of like peaceful winding down that you actually hope wine will bring you at the end of the night. I think a lot of individuals, it's the winding down, it's the peacefulness, it's the finding comfort in the consistency. But now, if you have that motion, it's almost like a crib, a rocking chair, whatever, and it's giving you that feeling of almost like being, you know, coddled or on a boat in some ways, unless you're seasick, maybe that's a problem. But I generally think that that's a major part of the experience. So maybe I nailed it. Maybe you at
Yes,
least
no, thank you.
so.
No, but that's 100% what I'm hoping for, and that's what I agree. I mean, I'm never gonna do a TV commercial, but there's all in my mind, I'm picturing somebody coming home from work, and it's like, "I just need a glass of wine." They open the cabinet, and they're picking a glass, and there's the traditional stem glass, and there's my glass, and they look at the 2 glasses, and they're like, "You know what? I need a liquid jazz experience. I need to bring it down. It's not just the glass of wine that I'm looking for." And, we go to restaurants and I bring this to restaurants and, we're sitting there and I can feel I'm trying not to look all around, but I can feel all these people just watching the rocking. Of course, no one's ever seen it before, but still just that whole thing. And you're right. I can feel the energy level just dropping. And that, that's a whole big part of what I want out of this. I'm not into the wine rating, like a lot of these wine podcasters and a lot of these shows. And it's like, oh, there was one I was watching and I thought, oh, maybe I'll reach out to this person. And he's tasting the wine and he takes it out and he sips it. And he goes, oh, this is good. This is that. And he opens it was it was in a bag. So he was, he didn't want to know what it was. And then he goes, "Oh, that's this wine. They have that rated at a 93. I would give it a 92 at best." I'm like, "Really?" I mean, it's a glass of wine. So just enjoy the glass of wine. Why do you or why do I have to say this is what it is? I want you to just say, "This is good. I'm enjoying this. This is a nice glass of wine. Now let's talk." Like I've watched some of you. I like your podcasts um when you've been the guest. First of all, they're visual. I'm more of a visual guy than I am just a listen guy. I tend to fall asleep when I listen. You can ask my wife that. So but the ones like the one when you were in Nashville with those two other guys and you were talking about the food scene in Nashville. Oh my god, that I love that. I could taste the food when you were talking about that show. It was crazy. And the one you did with the lady was kind of a religious type thing. That one was pretty intense. I mean, I watched that one to the end. It was like, holy cow. These are some views that I've had similar views too that I've never shared before. So it was pretty nice to see you to do that. But those are the type of things I want people to watch and listen. And the wine, it can't be secondary because I need you to buy the decanter to make the wine. But I want that to be just a part of the experience to get together and talk. Like we do those Thursday night wine nights, we call them. We sit outside. I have a fire pit out there now that I put a metal roof over so it disperses the heat. We're sitting out there at 32 degrees. If it's not windy, we're sitting around the fire. We're having glasses of wine. This is every Thursday for 25 years. We've been doing this. I had a book, a sign-in book, and I don't know why I stopped doing it. But at one point, different names, you only sign it once. And everybody who comes said, oh my God, this is so relaxing. We have every walk of life. We have different religions, different nationalities. We have immigrants. We have people born and raised here. We have, my grandchildren are there and have a glass of wine if they want, all the way up to, 90-year-olds just sitting around talking and stories and listening. And I'm like, oh, this is what I'm hoping that this does is just, make it the experience. That's what, and the youngest granddaughter, she was 6 when we were out trying to pick a name for this. And we're in a group setting at that launch company. And, I'd like the Liquid Jazz in because the Liquid Jazz, that's another little story. I know we're running late. You can cut it, but, he, our
Yeah.
son was a saxophone major. Son was a saxophone major in college. So 25 years ago was the first year I made my wine. Him and his college buddies, their sax quartet came over and we had an open house at Christmas time. So there was like 80 people that walked through in and out during the course of the evening. And they were in the foyer playing Christmas carols. So you get a college sax quartet playing and the people, again, that same thing. As soon as they walked in, it was like, oh, it got them in that festive mood. It got them relaxed and enjoying. Just the music did that. So, and he was always, our son Anthony was always, big band and marching band were his two favorite things. So all the notes had to be played the way they were written because somebody was always coming in off of somebody else. So the kids take a break and then they come back and they set up in a different part of the apartment and, the tunes change. He has his friend Ray is playing his drums. Andy's playing the guitar. They're playing the tunes. The saxophones are playing. So my friend Tony and my wife go up to him and said, "Anthony, what's going on? This is so not you." And he said, "Well, we get into the homemade wine on the break." And his friend Ray in the back says, "We get into the liquid jazz." So that's how I got the name Liquid Jazz. So we're working on Liquid Jazz, and I keep talking how I want this, to be an experience for people. So Indy's 8 years old. She says, "Grimpy, then just call it Liquid Jazz Experience." I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
sweet." And that was it. So the logo is, I don't know if you saw it online. It's a saxophone pouring notes into a glass of wine. So that's our logo, and that's the brand I'm trying to build.
Yeah, I love it. I think the overall experience, I think one of the things that is the most is catchy as well. And I think no matter this is where I don't care about the opinions of critics or people what they say or whatever, because there's an underlying nature in humans. And if you understand it as entrepreneurs, it's very important. Let me tell you about the underlying nature as I've done my research for this particular project. Humans, until the last 150 years, always were by water. Why? Water was safe. Water was our only form of power outside of animals and us. They churned butter eventually, so water produced power. Water produced voyage. Water produced safety. You could wash your clothes. You could produce your food. You could catch fish. If someone invaded you and you were mobile, you could quickly jump onto your boats with your TPs and you were gone down the river on your canoes. Okay, so I've done lots of research on water, why fountains, why people want stuff in their back garden. That just all kind of came out of here. We have the ponds in our garden with the trickling water. And all of it, we know it deep down inside, running water brings us tranquility. But what we don't realize is it's no different than when we're sleeping and all of a sudden we feel like we're falling out of a tree based on our innate thing. Water is an innate part of who we are as humans. Running water, the movement of water makes us feel safe. It makes us feel comfortable and it brings peace to us because of that safety. Because through thousands upon thousands of years, we've been conditioned to be near water because that's a place of safety, food, cleanliness, rejuvenation, whatever. If we didn't have water, you couldn't grow crops, so on and so forth. So the running of the water, because we are around it all the time, became something we heard all the time and became something that brings us comfort. And when we don't have it in our lives, when there's not a running fountain, when there's not a running thing, and believe me, I just stumbled across all this to this level. I had an idea. That's why I went down the rabbit hole, but I need to figure out if it was true or not. Is that humans, we naturally find comfort near. Why is a shower generally more soothing than a bath, even though we think a bath is more soothing? Well, the movement of the water. We generally come out, we're maybe a little more refreshed, even though we've taken a bath. We think we are, but the longevity of the soothing is actually a shower because of the running of the water, the noise, the touching of the body in a different way, not just the settling. It's moving. And that matters. It's why people tend to run the water while they're brushing their teeth instead of just letting it turn off because while they're brushing their teeth, they're getting the soothing from the water. Okay. That's why this product is also really important that as it becomes automating, it's a gentle noise in the background, you know, or it's something I get to do. There's a feeling there. There's a movement that we both recognize in sight, sound, and smell, even though it's a wine, because now the opening up, you recognized it from the ocean. It's no different. We recognize when liquids open up because of that attachment to the water. We need water to survive hydration wise. So we drink a lot of liquids, even if it's not water. And so for me, from a product standpoint, one of the things that I like about it the most, that I particularly have taken interest in it the most, is that it's not only an experience, but it's an elevated experience. It's doing what everyone wants wine to do at the end of the day, but what we're not realizing is part of the wine soothing is the swirling of the glass, it's the movement of the liquid, it's the forcing of the pouring of the glass, having the liquid move into a glass, and all that. And so it's no different than an oral fixation for cigarettes or someone like that. It's a constant because it brings them comfort and wine and liquid and stuff can do the same for us. So that's a particular interest. I just want to make that note for everyone. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we love our products or we love our food or we love our um, uh, convenience store item or grocery store item or whatever it is. Um, but the reality is there's more to it, or the selling of it has a lot to do with what is it bringing the human feeling wise, not only in flavor and in whatever, but in food and beverage. We break bread, we have emotions, we tend to come together as families when we eat and drink because there is peace there, because there is comfort. And no matter what your beef is with someone, even if it's your enemy, you are able to eat and break bread with someone usually fairly peacefully, um, for the most part. Can it go sideways? Sure, but it is a peaceful thing. So that's particularly why I like this product. It's why I like the concept of it. I think that we're looking at something that's serving multiple purposes for the human experience. And as an entrepreneur, that is what it's about. It's not only about providing a solution, it's about providing that greater solution for the human experience, ultimately. And if you're not solving a problem, a greater problem, also, then your product doesn't go very far, including food. Even if it's just a tomato, there has to be some sort of happiness, joy, ambiance that's beyond only the food that keeps people coming back over and over again. The food and the flavor, someone eventually comes along and adds something new. So with this, what I like about it is it's constant. There's always the weight back to it. There's always the emotional weight back to it. For me to lift that emotional weight. I have the emotional weight. This is something I do, even if I, just have a sip of the wine, but I find comfort in moving it around and letting it go through the process. I think it's part of the human experience. So that's just what I wanted to note for the audience, as well as someone who's sees a lot of entrepreneurs, sees a lot of ideas, has a lot of things come across my desk. This is one of those ones that's exceptionally different in that the emotion of the human is tied to it, whether they realize it or not. And we can't get rid of it. It's in our nature, from compounded generationally throughout our existence because of that relationship with being near water, for so long. I still find comfort in it. I prefer the ocean. Living in Colorado, I got to tell you guys, some days I'm like, where's my ocean, my lakes? Because I need to find one pronto or a river or whatever. But there is a comfort in it for me from being from the East Coast, being so close to the water. The water still does provide me personally with comfort as well. The movement of the water, the listening of the water, and in this case, that movement of the water at the beginning of the wine, the movement of the wine at the beginning of the show. If everyone goes back to that and watches the process, it literally brought me tranquility. Can't emphasize it enough. And even though I'd done the research and expected it, it still did it. I was not expecting it to the level that it was. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. You made my day.
Yeah, thank you for the word.
Yeah. Before we get off, I know I said it was my last question, but I just want to give you time to talk about anything that maybe we didn't get to cover, or you wanted to discuss on the show, or anything that maybe is calling inside of you to say out loud right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you said. I've never been able to put it in words, but that's exactly how I feel and what I see. And whenever we use this, we're always with friends and with family, and just that's one of the goals with this, is for the experience of it. It's just so crazy. And I mean, it's not just crazy just now. It's been crazy for years. But with people running all over the place, and you can't get together because there's music and soccer and dance, and work has got everybody working way too many hours. And even though when I had my business, we were open 60 hours a week, but we were never a huge store. So people would always just come in and just hang out. They come in and they'd bring me a coffee, and we just, they'd come and get orders. I mean, I had so many customers come in on Saturdays where the husband's coming and picking up something. And they're like, yeah, my wife said we can't talk this time. I have to get this project done today. I love that social aspect. I love that, the chit chatting and just learning. You can learn so much from, everybody else's experience, and just take the chance to stop and listen. And, I'm hoping that it's done it for me. I'm just hoping, and I have, some, the people that I know that have bought this, it's the same thing. You go to their house and before they pour the wine in the container and they let it sit and now they wait. So while they're rocking it, their guests are with them, and they enjoy the experience. They'll pour a little bit before we taste after it's decanted first, because you want that nice, smooth, soft flavor and texture in your mouth. And then you go to the other one. Of course, I do it to show the drama between the two. But I love the fact that they wait and they wait till their guests get there because they can. And it's like, hey, try this. So now it's another talking point. It's worked out great for that. And I have a few restaurants using it right now. And for them, what they do is, it's there's the Liquid Jazz special for any given evening is a wine that they got a great deal on that they can make a ton of money on. They want people to drink, or a wine that they've had in inventory for a while that they want to move. So they can create, sales for themselves in a controlled way, just by this. And, they bring it to the table. And the other thing is it ties up, a staff member for 4 minutes. I know it doesn't sound like a long time, but in the restaurant world, that's hours, 4 minutes. You can get a lot done in 4 minutes in the restaurant world, like waited tables. And you had to be nice to the people that had a ton of questions. It's like, just read the menu, please. But you don't say that. But yeah, this works, and you get to know the restaurant person, you get to know, and I don't know statistically, but I'm sure that the wait staff that spends that time with the customer at the table, rocking the wine and talking about the wine, the tip margin is, I would assume, would be a little higher than just dropping it off and walking away. So
I would agree
that's
with you.
where
I
I
think
am.
the waiters, waitresses, from the experience, it's no different than making the salad at the table or the guacamole. I think you're going to start to see that the restaurants are going to gain those experiences, and those experiences do well. It's why the banana pasta on fire is always such a thrill, or why hibachi is so interesting, why it's so popular. People like the entertainment and the experience along with whatever they're experiencing. This is one of those products where I think it is a value add. It's a value add for a host, it's a value add for a guest, it's a value add for a gift, and it's a value add for a restaurant or a hotel that has um, a, a a wine list in general and a wine service to enhance that experience, to elevate it for the guests, which is what we're trying to do in a very competitive world. The one of the first things I ever learned in business 101 at a very young age is what makes your ice cream shop different than the next one next door. I had to build an ice cream shop as one of my first projects. I was already starting to build a business in and of itself then, but one of my first projects was an ice cream store. And at the time, I was in hospital food. So at the time in 1998, it was very generic for the most part. But what that lesson with the ice cream shop taught me at 18 years old in Business 101 was that if I was going to do food for hospitals, I had to give them a different experience and I had to do it better than everyone else. And the first start was comfort, meaning I had to give them food from their ethnic backgrounds in Kaiser Permanente, in New York City hospitals, in Roanoke, Virginia, and the places we were starting to do business in. All of them had different demographics. All of them had different appetites. In New York City, when we took the bones out of chicken because of a choking hazard, because they had them in there and we couldn't figure out why they were still in there, we had a hunger strike in the hospitals. No one thought it was real chicken anymore because it didn't have a bone in it. But knowing the audience, knowing the comfort, knowing that we need to be able to give them experience no matter what it is through food and beverage, in particular, that you can get an apple off a tree anywhere. It's a matter of the experience that comes with the apple. What does the chef do? What does the entrepreneur do with it? What does the restaurateur do with it? That's the experience. And in this, we're taking something that's wine. A lot of people produce wine, but we're enhancing it for all the people that produce it. And not only that, we're enhancing the experience for the human beyond just the flavor profile, beyond just the smell, beyond just the immediate experience. There's a leading up to it. There's a building, no different than going to a really good restaurant that you've heard everyone talk about and you haven't been there yet, but you can't get a reservation for 3 weeks. It's that anticipation. It's that looking forward to. And in this case, I think people are going to look forward to the peace and tranquility that comes from rocking that wine bottle, wine decanter, back and forth. I love the design too, just so we're all aware. The whole thing makes sense to me. So, um, thank you, Michael. One last time, where can they find you online? Where can they reach out to you? How can they get their hands on these guys?
Yeah, you can order it right online at liquidjazzexperience.com. We have on our website. It's pretty easy to follow. And I have inventory right here. I live where the inventory is stored, so I can get it out next day, which is awesome. One thing I like, I'm going to start putting in the cases is I did a couple times with people who bought them, with people I knew, and we did a Zoom tasting. It was fun. It was the first time. So the first time you open it, let's set let's pick a date and let's do the Zoom tasting. It was a ton of fun. So we're gonna have information on that in there too. And also, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I
Yeah,
want to start doing stuff on TikTok and all that stuff too, but it's all new. I don't know. I have to learn all this stuff first. It's taking forever.
yeah, you have a product that will be very good for social media. The movement of the liquid, like I said, it's going to be eye catching, and I think your story and the experience. I'm interested to see where that goes as well because I think it is 100% camera friendly. To your point, and to everyone said that I need to make sure I get this on the camera. I agree with them, and the pushing of that because I understand the importance of it. Now I even can see that your growth and your potential has a lot to do with being giving the tranquility you just gave me. I'd listen all day long to you right now. I'm so at peace. That's what we try to do, I think, with
Oh, thank you.
wine
Yeah.
at church. I know it's the blood of Christ, but the wine at church at the end and as we're going out, a little bit of bread, we got a little food in our stomach, a little wine. It's meant to bring a little peace as we exit church also from the body of Christ and the blood of Christ. But what we're talking about here is actually
Yeah.
attaching it to the why. Why do those things bring us comfort? Why do we use them in the settings we use? And why is the timing the way that it is? And that's exactly what we hear. Before we drink the glass of wine, if you're bringing yourself to peace before you have the wine, you're at a more peaceful state while you're drinking it. You're going to enjoy it more. Things consumed in anger definitely tend to come out in anger. When we cook in anger, that energy is put into the food. So when we're naturally already putting the liquid and stuff at peace also with ourselves, to the energy matters there. It's not a mistake, guys. I don't know how to say it, but God created the tree. We took that energy and we created furniture. Okay. We're talking about the same thing here. We're taking an energy that happens naturally and now we're pushing it along a little bit more by moving it back and ground. So you can't see my hands, moving it back and forth. That allows that tranquility, that allows that elevated experience, that human, where we come in and we take what's given to us and elevate it for each other. So that's particularly one of the reasons I like it. I also think it'll do well because of it. But I also think the bringing of peace before the consumption, the bringing of peace to the product itself. I will say that the gentle movement and water's meant to move, so water's at peace when it's moving. Anything liquid is at peace when it's moving because that's what it's always doing. When we bring it to a stop is probably when it's less comfortable. So no different than humans actually. And that's where I sit on this, guys. I would try it. I'd watch the video. I'd spend some time getting to know Michael, make a phone call, go visit him. This product will change your restaurant. It will change your experience. It will change your dinner parties at your home if you're an entertainer. I recommend more than one. Okay. And I'm going to say this, people are like, oh, I already have one. What do I need two? Because you're going to need one for yourself and one for your friend to do along with you while you're doing it, because it is that type of playful, childlike curiosity experience that fulfills us in it. That innocence, that thing that brings us. So you're getting into together. It's no different than painting by number or when you're drinking or whatever else they do now, you're bringing peace through an experience, and you're allowing the alcohol to have a positive impact through the energy that you're giving to it. So that's just me. You guys can do whatever you want, but I know anyone out there knows when they're angry and they're cooking and they serve their food, they think that maybe their family's energy is coming off them, but it's also the food, the anger, energy, disruption, discontent. It's all passable. It's contagious, so we can pass it on in many different ways. But this, I think it's a momentum breaker for negative energy for sure. So thank you, Michael, for producing it. In all honesty,
Thank
uh,
you. Thank you very much. That felt good.
yeah, no, and I know, and I'm going to say it in Roman Catholic churches, Orthodox churches. You have the priest; they're swinging something around with the smoke come out of it. It's a movement. It's a pace. You go into a psychiatrist's office, and the good ones have the little ball that's bouncing back and forth on purpose. At first, it may be annoying, but what it's supposed to do is bring in routine and consistency to bring the peace, no different than the movement of the water that we're talking about here. So again, I know I'm beating a dead horse, guys, but I really emphasize this will change your experience, not only from just the taste and the flavor, but I do feel strongly about that it will bring peace to your homes, to your relationships, to your conversations. Allowing this to be in the middle of the hard conversations will allow them to be easier. I don't know why, but I'm just saying from my own experience, from just watching the videos, not even getting to touch it myself, but acting at like it, moving something as I'm talking just to try it, get the same experience. Um, that's what it is for me, guys. The flavor and all that, I 100% agree it's there and it's a part of the process. But I think part of the thing is the peace you're going to find in the process of getting to that glass of wine. The mission that you're not just able to pop it and have that instant satisfaction, that instant gratification that we crave so much, that is so short lived. This allows you to enjoy the experience and just slow down for a second and be present in the moment, not just get down a glass of wine. It actually makes you present. So thank you, Michael, again. One more time, where can they find you online? I'll do it one more time for everyone as we get off, and I will cut us out of here.
Yep. Thank you. It was a fun time. I enjoyed this a ton. It's liquidjazzexperience.com. That's where you can order through. And we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for who listened in. I appreciate all of you guys. I love you guys. Please like, share, comment on the episode. We don't charge. We cover all the costs here, but that's so we get the stories out there for everyone. So all we ask from the audience, all we ask for you guys in return is that you share, a like, tell others, other entrepreneurs, other individuals about what you hear and see in this occasion on our show. That's all we ask, is that that's the fee that's paid. It's all free. We don't even take on advertisers because we don't want to distract you guys from the content. So I appreciate all of you guys, and we're out. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. This was awesome.
I appreciate you. And I appreciate what you did. Thank you.
Oh, I had a blast. Thank you very much. And if you know anybody who's what I'm looking for, don't be afraid to send them my way. Because, like I said, I'm at a not a crossroads of what I want to do, but to get it to, I'm not even talking the next level, like the stratosphere level. I'm just talking, the exposure part, and to be able to have those outreach feelers. It's beyond me. I was
Yeah,
always in the retail part. I just I ordered it. It came in a box. We put it on a shelf and sold it. I always felt comfortable selling, but I've never had to do all this stuff to sell.
yeah. I think the entrepreneurial experience for everyone is interesting, especially when we actually have a product and there's no way to get it out there without doing it ourselves. That's one of the craziest thing I think as business people or entrepreneurs in the world. We've had networks or professionals that have taken on, but when we truly get to a point of creating something new or different like you had, you have to build the whole thing yourself. And like I said from the ice cream story, I literally, as I changed, we changed healthcare and we changed the way we did it, and we sourced directly from the farmers and locked up a lot of that and made everything from scratch. And would bring all the food in fresh this morning off the vine, dead from the animal, whatever this morning, and produce it in food into the hospitals by tonight for consumption, lunch, dinner tomorrow, and breakfast the following day. We had to do it all ourselves. We had to build our own HR department. We had to build our own sales department. I had to build our own distribution system, even with the US Foods and the Cisco's, because they couldn't handle exactly what we were doing because we were being so disruptive. And I think from your standpoint, one of the things about being disruptive or introducing something new is if it doesn't come from the entrepreneur or the trailblazer himself, it just gets lost in the white noise of everything else because no one has the passion that you have for it. And because of that, you have to build every department. I built the HR department. I built the sales department. I built the accounting department. No one ever told me that's part of being an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to get to live good and bla- blaze a trail and
Right.
be a hero and a future all day and live well and do whatever. But then all of a sudden, well, the business is growing. It needs things. No one else can do it but you because you're the one who built the original thing in the first place. So, and you can get help building, but generally it comes from the person with the idea and the passion. So,
And I don't mind doing that. Like I said, if I was, 40 years younger, I'd be more excited about that climb. But, at this point, yeah, I can't, the years go by much, much quicker now. And, and I get it and I love it. And I don't want to give up that part. That's where we had a furniture store. They were, they were big and they were bought out by, it might even have been Berkshire Hathaway, but they kept the owner on for to be the face of the company. So something like that would be a lot of fun, would be ideal.
I think you're
And it's hard,
building.
if
Yeah.
you're not connected, you don't even know where to look.
Mhm.
So and then there's so many people out there that I don't know the trust factor. I haven't given up on it, but sometimes it can be real challenging to. And a lot of it, I believe, is a lot of people are just so busy with so many things in their life that, when they say, "Oh, yeah, you know what? I got this guy. Let me call him." And then you reach back, "Oh my God, I got tied up on this and this." And I believe that. I believe that they did get tied up, because I'm not high on the priority list. So I do understand that aspect of it. So anyway, yeah, if there's anything out there, don't be afraid to send them on. I'm
Yeah.
open to listen to anything from anybody. And if nothing, I'll learn that that's not the way to go. Sometimes learning the way not to go is just as important as finding the way to go.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and I know anyone in the audience that sees this is going to be impacted. And I think the product itself is going to change people's lives, as a result, it changes yours. We don't get to change our own lives necessarily; we get to change others, and as a result, our lives change. And I think that that's where you are. I think that super abundance, that significant change and impact that happens in life, are in moments like these where we don't give up on life. We're constantly creative. We're constantly learning. We're growing until our eldest of ages. And along the way, we discover something that's truly impactful because it's timing. People are always like, well, why haven't I discovered it at 20? Why am I not still at 30 or where I want to be? Well, success is a compounding of skills and life experiences. That's and how we use them or how we reflect on them and reuse them. And so I love it, Michael. I love what you're doing, and I look forward to having longer conversations with you for sure. And
Yeah,
maybe,
this will be fun. Now, when do you think I'm going to be able to tell people about this?
yep, I'll say it because your episode will release on the 10th of November, so it's a Monday.
Oh, soon.
Yep.
Awesome. So then just go to YouTube, or will I get a link to be able to share?
I'll give you a link and everything. I'll email it to you, and it'll release out on the 10th for you. I move you guys around for when I get special requests, and the audience knows it too. When I get certain requests from certain individuals, I move you guys to the front. She knows who she is.
Oh,
I help you guys out a lot.
thank you. Yeah, this
And
was so much fun. Even just doing stuff. This is crazy.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Michael. You have a good day, and I'll be in touch. And I'd love to do a part two if you want to reach out to Jenny and ever do another part two for us, if you'd like to do
All
that.
right, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure and I have plenty of room on the calendar with you guys because I'd love to have the conversation. I know the audience would as well. So I appreciate you, Michael, and you have a good one.
I will. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.